Welcome to another trip down the Bourbon Road with your hosts, Jim and Mike. So grab a glass of your favorite bourbon and kick back.
Hey, listeners, you still got some time before Christmas this week. Will you get it yet? Probably not. But if you want to buy your friends a nice Christmas gift, a nice gift to start their new year with, how about some bourbon aged maple syrup? That's right. Our good friends up at Seldom Seen Farms in Ohio is pouring his maple syrup into bourbon barrels, leaving it aged there for 6 to 9 months. And then what we like to do is pour it in our cocktails. Some simple syrup. Get rid of that. Use that maple syrup that's been aged in bourbon barrels for 6 to 9 months from Seldom Seen Farms, making the perfect cocktail. Now you can pour it on pancakes like this fat guy likes to do. You can pour it on waffles. Hell, you can pour it on chicken and biscuits. That's a great way to go. But it'll have that bourbon taste to it. Kind of that grown-up maple syrup. It's 100% from his farm, 2,000 trees. So check out seldomseenmaple.com. Pick up a couple of his bottles of bourbon-aged maple syrup for your friends, for yourself. Hell, you can even send Big Chief a bottle. Hey, this is Big Chief from the Bourbon Road. And Jim's not able to be here today. He's down in Florida catching some fish with his fly rod. He's enjoying himself down there. I'm sure he's got a cocktail in his hand right now because it's about 4 o'clock. It's not 5 o'clock down there, I don't think. But Jim is fishing. So today we are sitting down. We're on the internet. I hate this because we're not in person. But we got the founder, the owner, the man, the myth, the legend. He calls himself the janitor because he sweeps up all the messes that everybody else is making. But we have Paul on. Paul, how you doing today, man?
Doing good. I got to tell you, I'm a little hungry after listening to that bourbon maple syrup. I got to get me some of that. But I'm doing pretty good today overall.
Yeah, aged in bourbon barrels. Chicken and waffles right now. It's about that time of the day to eat some chicken and waffles and pour that on top of there.
I could destroy some chicken and waffles right now.
That grown-up maple syrup. Now, Paul, I didn't say your last name because even though you told me how to say it, how do I say your last name? I knew I was going to tear it up.
It's all good, man. Last name is Hletko, so it looked scary because you got all these consonants, but it's really not so bad. My wife always threatened to buy me a vowel for our wedding present, but I said,
well, how do you? What ethnicity is that?
It's Czech.
Czech Republic. I was gonna say German. I thought, but you never can tell. You can't tell these days. Nope. People from all walks of life. So we're here to talk about your whiskey. You have Feud, and we actually got the bottled and bond to drink today, straight bourbon whiskey, 100 proof. I'm assuming this is over 4 years old because it is bottled and bond, right? You're out of Evanston, Illinois. Now, where is Evanston at?
So we're just immediately north of Chicago. So if you picture Chicago, the northern border of Chicago is the southern border of Evanston.
So you're not that stone's throw from Wisconsin up there.
Yeah, it's about maybe 40 minutes to Wisconsin, like Racine, Kenosha area, probably maybe 45-ish. And then we're right on the lake, so you can just take the highway up, and you're there in 45 minutes. We're probably hour 15 from Milwaukee, and I made it to the Blackhawks game last night during rush hour traffic in about 35 minutes.
I love Chicago. I love that area up there. It gets a bad rap sometimes in the news, but I broke a little ice up into there on a Coast Guard icebreaker back in the day, and we used to deliver Christmas trees to folks down in Chicago. We'd cut down about 2,000 of them from the tip of the mitt and haul them down there on a Christmas tree ship.
Nice.
So part of history. So I feel like I got a link to you now.
Yeah, Chicago's a great place to be, man. It's a great city. It's got everything you want in a big city with a little bit less of the stuff you don't than a lot of other places, and you get a great lifestyle at least vaguely reasonable price.
So, Few on the bottle. Let's talk about the bottle for a second, because it is striking, the label that you have on here. There's a statue on here. It's not the Statue of Liberty. What is that statue?
So the statue is actually inspired by the statue that was kind of the defining image of the 1893 World's Fair here in Chicago, which was kind of a turning point in Chicago history. And so all of the iconography and all of our bottles is based on that World's Fair. And so we kind of lead with, the defining image, which was the Statue of the Republic. So like you say, it's not the Statue of Liberty because, it's not, but it was the size of the Statue of Liberty, but made out of paper mache. And so it's long, long, long gone. It doesn't exist anymore. Although there is a replica on the near south side that some people see.
Nobody takes a Few bottle over there to that replica and takes photos?
Oh, I do.
Yeah. So let's get into the history of Feud. When did you start?
So Few's been in the business now for about 10 and a half years at this point. We celebrated our 10th birthday in August. And, as a grain to glass distillery, we always have, always will, made every drop of whiskey we sell ourselves. So we hit the market relatively early with gin, as well as effectively unaged whiskey. But we'd been making whiskey for a while before opening. So we were able to launch our whiskey products relatively quickly. We're about 10 and a half years old, making whiskey the old fashioned way by scratch. And we don't source anything.
So I'm assuming that you would have to, do you try to buy everything from Illinois, like Southern Illinois, all your grains and stuff, or?
Yeah, we get everything from as close to home as we can get it. It used to be we got everything from within about 150 miles. That's not really true anymore. Right now, we really focus on the quality of grains that we can get and make sure that they hit our specs and our quality. We're in Chicago, so getting good quality grain is kind of like being in Kentucky. It's harder to buy bad quality grain than good. So we're in the grain belt. We can get great quality grain. So we get everything from as close to home as we can get it, so long as it hits our quality needs. But, we get corn from Illinois, Wisconsin, Indiana, Michigan. We get our rye from, kind of Minnesota, Wisconsin, maybe a little bit out of like Ontario or Alberta, depending on where it's coming from. Everything's as close to home as we can find the best quality grain.
That's nice to know that you guys started that way, and you started with clear liquids. You got to keep the lights on, right? Some you got to pay the bill some way to get to 4 years.
Yeah, I mean, beforehand, before we started recording, you're talking about other distilleries where maybe Daddy bought the distillery for somebody. I did not. And so it's always been a solid struggle for us to build up because I started without money. But I've also always wanted to do things the way I want to do them. You can even see the poster behind me where it says, many know the way, but few follow it. And that's true. Everybody knows how to make whiskey grain to glass and let it age and do it, but not everybody does. But we do.
Yeah, sometimes it's hard to sit there and wait on it too, right? I'm sure it was hard to wait to get this to bottled and bond.
It's definitely it's always a difficult challenge. You spend all your money up front and you have to sit on it for years until the whiskey's ready. But such is life. That's how it goes. And I didn't get into this business to make money. I got into it to make whiskey. And that's the price of doing what you want to do. If you want to make whiskey, you're going to have to do that. You got to make whiskey.
Now, I'll let all of our listeners know, Paul is a common man. Before we came on, he was already logged into StreamYard and kind of backstage, but I get to see what's going on back there and I get to hear what's going on back there. He's in there just jamming out to I'd say some old school rock, probably some 70s rock on a jam station on Sirius XM. And so that, to me, that shows you're just a common guy. There's no classical music playing. There's no Rolls Royce probably parked in your garage or anything.
No. Actually, just on the other side of the computer screen is my band practice space where I've got all my guitar. I've got my guitar and my amp, and we get up. We were talking about other distilleries, and I'm just a dorky suburban dad, and I happen to make whiskey for a living.
Well, let's talk about the whiskey for a second, and so I can, because it's killing me not to sip on this glass yet, because I've been trying to wait.
That's what it's for. It's whiskey. It's not for looking at a bottle. You put it in your mouth.
Heck yeah. So what's your mash bill on this?
It's 70-20-10. So 70 corn, 20 rye, 10 malt. We use a Belgian beer yeast for the ferment, and I think that Belgian beer yeast is what helps give it a lot of that spice flavor, that kind of the black and white pepper, that especially that coriander that you'll get in there. A lot of that cinnamon spice is coming out of that yeast, and it's something we're really proud of.
And what's a bottle of this supposed to go for in a store?
I'm seeing it as low as 40 around Chicagoland, but MSRP is, I think, 50. All
right. Nice. For a craft whiskey, that's about the right price you should see. 100 proof, that's not bad right there. I'm glad that I don't see it at like 86 or 90 proof or even 80, and you kept it at 100. Of course, for Bottle and Bond, it has to be 100 proof. It has to be aged 4 years. I love it. Well, let me nose a sucker. I'm getting a little bit of custard on that, like a creamy. I could get the oak. Me and Jim always say there's a candy at like Tractor Supply or a farm feed store called Whorehounds, and I get a little bit of that Whorehound in there. Little bit of smoke.
Yeah, char 3 barrels.
Yeah, I like that. That's really beautiful. It is what a bourbon should be. I don't like to give off those notes of oak and leather and tobacco. Whorehound candy resonates with me. If I smell that's what I'm going to get. Whorehound candy is like that, a root beer candy almost, but a little bit more medicinal. Well, Paul, cheers.
No, cheers, man. Now you're making me thirsty. I gotta grab an open bottle here.
Definitely get that black pepper that you were talking about, that spice right on the tip of the tongue. Some really dark cherries on that. If you've ever been up to the UP of Michigan, they're known for their cherries up there. Yeah, they got some dark cherries up there. Perfect with that. That oak is coming through.
It's funny to talk about cherries. Like we always talk about the house style at Feud Spirits because we've got a couple different whiskeys out there. But to me, kind of our house style is cinnamon, like the real cassia cinnamon and tart cherries. Our bourbon tends to focus a little bit more on that spice, and our rye tends to focus a little bit more on the cherries. But that's definitely what we're going for, is that cherry note.
I actually you're talking about cinnamon, but not the bun itself, but Cinnabon has that I don't know what it is, glaze on top of it, stirred in with cinnamon. And I get that creaminess with that cinnamon mixed in gives me that little bit of spice. Really, really beautiful. Everything's kind of carrying over from those. And I think that's a really nice thing whenever you know something and then the palate matches up perfectly with it. You guys did an excellent job with this right here, doing that.
Thank you.
That tells a story. Not everybody can do that. Sometimes the nose will fool you, and you might get a off-putting nose, and then you drink the bourbon, and you're like, "Wow, this is really good." Or the nose is so wonderful, and you're expecting this just beautiful bourbon, and then you drink it, and you're like, "Wow, that's kind of a letdown." Well, this right here, the nose matches perfectly with the palate across the board. Really, really nice.
Thanks.
So, Paul, what's your background in? What got you before you did bourbon, before you started making whiskey, started a distillery? What did you do?
What I really like to do is create and make stuff. We're talking. I've got my guitars here. I used to be a pro guitar player. I owned and ran a record label for a hot minute. Built custom guitar effects pedals. Made beer at home. Creativity is what gets me excited and gets me out of bed in the morning. Like, I don't do very well with structure. I have a very material issue with any sort of authority. I don't do well with authority. It just doesn't go very well for me, and it ends up with everybody being unhappy. But making stuff is what gets me excited. And so making whiskey is just kind of a little bit of a natural outgrowth of that, because I don't see a huge difference between making music and you're recording music and pressing it onto a little vinyl record, or making whiskey and putting it in a bottle. Yes, the techniques are different. They're different arts, but they're both fundamentally artistic endeavors that allow the artist to express themselves in a way that is true to who that person is. Whether you're making music or painting or sculpture or a podcast or whiskey in a bottle, it's that creativity that is the exciting part. And so, what I did before was always try to make and create. And then my grandfather died, which was sadly something that happens to almost all of us. But prior to World War II, his family had owned a major brewery in what's now the Czech Republic. Again, Czech heritage. 1939, I presume everybody's aware, but Nazis invaded and they confiscated the brewery and murdered the whole family in the camps. And although my grandfather survived, he spent the rest of his life trying to get the brewery back, but never did. And when he passed, it struck that all of that history is gone forever unless I do something about it. So I was able to kind of take this creative compulsion, for lack of a better word, and focus it in on beverage alcohol, and try to do it in a way that wasn't in the shadow of a brewery, and to do it in a way that is positive and, again, creative. And, theoretically, someday my grandpa will be able to look up and, be proud at me.
Well, I'm sure he is. I mean, anybody that's creativity and has made something of their life, and you obviously have, right? You made a bourbon brand, you made a whiskey brand, a spirits brand. And I always wonder that. You wonder what your grandparents, what your father thinks of you as a man or even a woman. Did I live up to their expectations of what their child or grandchild would be? I'd say he'd probably smiling down from heaven right now, looking down at your stuff and saying, "Wow."
I know my grandpa. He's not looking down; he's looking up. But you don't get to pick your family, man. That said, you only get 4 grandparents, and they're people just like you are, and we've all got our flaws. I'm cursed. I've probably got more flaws than the average guy, but we're all deeply flawed people, and it's just kind of what you do with what you're good at, and how you can be true to who you are. And that's kind of what I just try to do. I try to be true to who I am and have that integrity in the way you conduct your life. How you deal with other people, have that integrity, but be true to who you are. And I want to be creative. I want to make. And so I do. You can like what I make, or you can not like what I make. I'm still going to make it. And there are a few people out there that are going to enjoy it. And I don't need everybody to like what I do. I only need a few people to like what I do. And that's okay.
Well, you see your whiskey on some TV shows, on some movies. Yeah.
It's always fun.
Is prop pieces, I guess, really. Or it might be what that actor likes to drink and says, hey, they're like, hey, what if we're going to bring a whiskey in? What do you want to have you drinking or something? And I remember a couple shows seeing Feud on it, and I'm like, man, there's Feud right there. You know, you're a podcaster about whiskey, about bourbon. That's one of the first things that's usually going to catch your eye.
Yep.
Like me and my wife watching Yellowstone the other night. You would think every chance they got, they would have a Yellowstone whiskey. That's not the case, because they have several different whiskeys on that show, several different beers on that show, to be truthful. But they always catch my eye. You know, I'm like, oh, there's Bullet. There's Blanton's. They have Yellowstone on there. There's Coors Light, or there's Coors Original. You know, there's little squat bottles, Coors bottles. They're always drinking those. So I'm sure for you, as a distillery owner, it's nice to see your bottles on those shows, though.
Yeah, it's always fun. Like, a friend of mine, caught a glimpse of it on one of my favorite shows. It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. And so it was super fun that I got to see my bottle on It's Always Sunny. And, at the same time, there's, one of my other favorite shows, I had to turn them down. They came asking for a release to use my bottle on one of my favorite shows, and I had to say no because they wanted to put it in the hands of a alcoholic. And nope, can't do that. And then a movie came at me a couple of years ago, wanted to have, I swear to God, they wanted to feature my bottle in the hands of a 747 pilot who's currently flying the 747. I'm like, no, guys, you can't have my bottle in the hands of somebody flying a passenger jet.
Yeah, it's good, the transparency that at least they're asking you and telling you, hey, this is what we want to do with your brand. I would like to see your brand on Chicago PD or on Chicago Fire, Chicago Med, anything about Chicago, right? It seems like, and if anybody's out there listening that produces one of those shows, that gets pieces for those shows, hey, why not have a Chicago brand on a Chicago show, right?
There's a Netflix show called Easy that we were all over a couple years ago, and that was fun. But including one particular episode where let's just say that there are multiple people, none of whom are wearing clothes, and about the only thing you could see other than flesh is a bottle of Feud. I'm like, yes, this is awesome.
You done one in life right there, right?
There we go. That was fun. Like, oh, you guys used the bottle well. Well played.
So when you started out, did you start out thinking, man, I'm going to make some bourbon whiskey? Have you been drinking bourbon whiskey for a while?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely have been drinking bourbon whiskey since I was 21, at least. Never going to admit to having drank it before that. But yeah, I mean, I really enjoy whiskey because, well, it's delicious. And again, like, we all have our flaws. One of my flaws is I tend to be a little bit compulsive. And if I'm drinking beers, I'm probably going to get pretty annihilated because I just sit and pound beers. Drinking whiskey, I can just sit and drink whiskey all night, and I don't really get too far.
Well, the thing is especially if you sip on it neat, right? Without any ice or anything, it's not going to allow you to just guzzle it down, right? The whiskey's going to control you, or it's going to control you in a couple of different ways. If you do overconsume in it, you're probably not going to have a good next day. Or if it might tell you, hey, I'm going to let you sit me in a slow pace here and enjoy me for the evening, and like a good companion should. And it'll be a nice night for you, and you'll have a good next day. That's what I like about whiskey. I don't feel bloated. I'm not drinking pounding beers just to pound beers. Cause I'm just like you. I can drink a plethora of beers, but then I have to pee like 20 or 30 times. So, whiskey doesn't do that. It's a nice, conversation drink too.
Yeah, it's whiskey is just a magical beverage, and I love drinking it. I love being a part of the industry. I love other people that make whiskey. Like, we're all friends. You were talking
so
about
what was
Dominic
that
earlier. Alex is awesome. I can't say enough great things about Alex. Like, what a great business where you can sit and talk about your so-called competitors, and you're like, I'm not their competitor. That's my friend.
Yeah, I mean, what a great person she is, and the lineage she pretty much has. And then you talk to her, she's like, I knew at 13 years old that I was going to make whiskey. That's pretty badass. But I also love that whiskey is so connected, even in podcasting or social media and stuff. We're a small, I always call it the bourbon community. We're a very small and knit group of people that are like-minded, that love to talk about whiskey, love to drink it, love to promote it, want more people to know about it and stuff. Paul, do you remember your first sips of whiskey? Do you remember what brand you was drinking back then?
I sure do. First sips of whiskey were Maker's Mark.
Maker's Mark.
A hell of a whiskey to start with, man. That's a great pour. Like all they do is excel over at Maker's Mark. They make great whiskey. They make it well. They keep on making it day after day. It kind of pisses me off. I wish they sucked, but they don't. They make great stuff.
Well, they make great stuff, yeah. But you're right there with them, though, right? You didn't happen overnight for Maker's Mark. Everybody needs to get that straight. And I try to tell as many people as possible with craft distilleries, it's not going to happen overnight. And some of the distilleries, like yourself, you're 10 years, you're coming of age, right? You're coming of age, and the whiskey is starting to hit that, like, hey, we're about to do something really cool here, or we're doing something really cool, and you need to pay attention. Because your whiskey is just cool as old as some of Maker's Mark stuff.
We're doing great stuff here at Few Spirits. And that's not taking away anything from Maker's Mark. I mean, Maker's Mark is great. Fill in the blank. Four Roses, Willet. It doesn't matter. They're making great stuff. So that's what I always say is like, that's the thing about the whiskey business is my competitors make good stuff. I can't sit here and say otherwise. Otherwise, I'm stupid. If I made beer, I could sit here and say, what are you going to do? Drink Budweiser? No, I'm not going to drink Budweiser. But sitting here, like, what are you going to do? Drink Maker's Mark? Hell yeah, you're going to drink Maker's Mark. It's great stuff. And
well, so I'm a weeded bourbon nut, so yeah, I'm going to drink some Maker's Mark.
Yeah, of course, it's great. I can't say that. I mean, I can, but it's stupid. That's my always thing is that if you're making whiskey, you got to match that quality, and you have to be different. And so I think that we have the same quality as Maker's Mark. Which I think is a high burden again, but we don't taste the same. And that's the joy. Like you might like Maker's Mark better than mine. I hope you don't, but if you do, cool, man. That's how it goes. And maybe your friend likes Feud better than Maker's Mark or sub in Four Roses. You get a group of 10 whiskey nuts together. They're going to have 10 different favorite whiskeys and they're all correct.
Well, we get asked all the time, what's your favorite whiskey? And as I look at my desk here, because I had to clean up for Christmas because we have guests coming over. I have probably 40 bottles of bourbon just surrounded this laptop. And I don't really know at this point that I have a favorite whiskey anymore. I still am the Weedy King of Kentucky, and I still love my weeded bourbon. But I love to drink some rye. I love to drink rye whiskey. I'm starting to enjoy some single malts that are American single malts at that. I just enjoy everything, and that's kind of the podcasting, or if you're doing a YouTube channel, or if you're doing an Instagram or TikTok and you have one of those pages and you're drinking all these whiskeys, it is hard to have a favorite. Do I have a everydayer? If I didn't have any other whiskeys, it would be Weller every day. Mm-hmm. Obviously behind me, you see bottles stashed up there. They're all throughout the house stashed. But I enjoy other whiskeys, and brands like you, like Few, allow me to experience different things. It's like a cake almost, or going into an Italian cookie shop. They'll have 50 different cookies in there, and you're like, oh, which one can I taste? And my wife's always like, well, let's just get a couple of each. Well, that's what whiskey allows us to do, is to taste all these great things that are coming out of America, coming out of Illinois as Few. And you're doing more things than just bourbon whiskey, right?
Yeah, our business is really built up on bourbon as well as rye whiskey, and then but trying to be creative. We make our bourbon, we make our rye. We got the bottled and bond bourbon out now. We got bottled and bond rye coming out next year, if we can get glass. We're always doing our best, but we also try to be a little bit creative and innovative. So, like, we've got a product out there where we bring our bourbon to bottle strength with cold brew coffee. We call it the cold cut bourbon. We've got another one where we bring our rye whiskey to bottle strength with cold extracted oolong tea called the Immortal Rye. And we're trying to bring new and different flavors into whiskey, to give people different flavors for when they're in different moods, but also to help bring people into the world of whiskey. Whiskey can unfortunately be a little bit intimidating to novices, and I think it's really nice to kind of try to extend, that hand across the chasm to give people something they might be a little bit more familiar with. Oh, it's bourbon with coffee. I drink coffee every day. Maybe I'll like that. They try it. They like it. Now maybe they go out and maybe they try another bottle from Feud, or maybe they go and try a Weller and they try something else. And you're bringing people into this community of whiskey, just like you were saying, because the bigger the community, the more awesome. Share whiskey. It's whiskey's for sharing. It's brings people together. It's your friends. It's your family. It's your good times. It's your bad times. And you're sharing this over a glass of whiskey with people. That's what whiskey's for.
Well, in the second half, listeners, we're going to get into what Feud has just released in the last couple of months and what they're going to release on the future, because I know that Paul's got some hidden little secrets that he's going to let all of our listeners know about. We'll be right back. So, listeners, I know you have heard about Seldom Seen Farms and their bourbon barrel aged maple syrup. You're going to love this stuff. You like making cocktails, 2 ounces of bourbon, 1 ounce of this bourbon barrel aged maple syrup, some bitters, and you got yourself an old fashioned. It doesn't get any easier than that right there. So check that out. They also got some of their regular half pint maple syrup. They've got some bourbon maple candles. They've got some maple cotton candy. You can also buy their regular maple syrup in big, giant quart jars, kind of the old style whiskey jug style right there. They got some gift packages and stuff. They also sell some buttermilk pancake mix. Just in case you don't have the right pancake mix, you can get that. You can also buy 12 bottles of this at a time if you're really into it. Or if you have a store, reach out to Seldom Seen Farms. Talk to Kevin, tell him the Bourbon Road sent you. You can visit their website, seldomseenmaple.com. Order now. You're probably just a little bit too late for Christmas, but I'm sure as soon as he can get it out the door, he'll get it out. Kevin taps into 2,000 trees on his farm up in Northeast Ohio. A true farmer, true craftsman. How could you not love it? He puts his maple syrup into bourbon barrels. Places like New Riff, places like Leaper's Fork down in Tennessee are working with him. Check him out today. We'd appreciate it. All right, listeners, we are back with Feud. I know you've seen their whiskey on the shelf. They got several different products out there. They got some gin. They got some rye. They got their bottled and bond now. Really throwback labels on there. A little squatty bottle. Not square so much, but squatty, I would call it. Pretty beautiful labels. I'd say like 1930-ish, 1920s. And we got Paul on with us today. So, Paul, what's coming down the pike for Feud?
Yeah, with Feud, I think we're going to continue doing what we do, which is making and creating. We got some cool stuff that we just released, including that Bottled and Bond Bourbon. We got a Bottled and Bond Rye coming out next year, if and when we can get glass. People, if you're hearing stories about supply chain issues, they're real. So, we were supposed to release Bottle the Bond Rye this at the same time as the bourbon, but can't. So we're hoping to be able to get enough supplies to release that in the coming year. We've also got a really cool collaboration whiskey coming out with another rock band. We've worked with several rock bands in the past, but coming up this spring, hopefully, again, if we can get bottles, we've got a collaboration with the band called the Black Rebel Motorcycle Club coming out. Something we're real excited about because it's a really, really cool whiskey. And we're doing stuff that I haven't really seen done very often before with them. And so I think that's going to be a really, really fun and exciting project that I can't wait to have out on the marketplace. We're getting ready to start blending it. I'm going to start blending it next week. And we think we'll be able to, I think we're going to be able to get it blended inside of 3 or 4 months. We'll have to wait and see how it's coming down with the proof and so on. But we think it's going to be nice and quick, and maybe only 3 months. That's an exciting one. And then after that, we'll have to kind of wait and see how things are going. We've got a fun product coming out just for the Chicago market, working with a very, very famous Chicago chef, shall we say, which will be really fun. We're going to wait and announce that one when the time comes. But that's going to be really fun. And I think an awful lot of people in the whiskey world are going to kind of give me a little bit of a stink eye over it. Like, what are you doing? But people in Chicago are going to be like, oh, that's awesome. So this is for us. This isn't for you. This is for us, man. This is for Chicago.
We got some people, listeners, that also drink gin, and you also have a barrel gin, right? It's been aged in a bourbon barrel.
Yeah, it's aged in a mixture of new and used bourbon and used rye. So 3 different kinds of barrels in there. But yeah, it's a really fun gin, and it's the perfect gin for the whiskey drinker because as much as we all try, we can't live by whiskey alone. Sometimes you got to cross over into other categories, and so we're sitting there waiting for you with the barrel aged gin, and then
you got some other gins too, right? You got an American gin and a breakfast gin. What's a breakfast gin?
Well, the breakfast gin is the most important gin of the day. I mean, that's just how it is. It's what my mama taught me. I don't know about your mama, but it's that fantastic gin to kind of, you kind of wake up and you take the edge off. It goes amazing with pancakes. You could probably even use that bourbon barrel aged maple syrup that we're talking about with that barrel aged with the breakfast gin on your pancakes and be just fantastic. But it's just a gin. It's nice. It's very herbal. We use Earl Grey tea as one of the main botanicals. And I think it's really nice because it's not so super dry as a lot of people get turned off. When you're in the gin business, you're trying to talk to people about gin, you always hear about that one time when they were 17 in their friend's basement and they had a handle of this or that brand. And if it's a girl that you're talking to, their friend had to hold their hair back. If it's a guy you're talking to, other bad stuff happened where, it's always the same story, but people are growing up now and you can go back and you can drink a real gin. You can drink a real drink and it doesn't have to be whiskey. You can do other stuff too, but gin's a pretty small part of what we do at this point. But we really like making gin for that same reason we were talking about earlier, that creativity. Whiskey has a lot of rules about what you can and what you can't do. Gin really doesn't have a lot of rules. So you can kind of do whatever the hell you want making gin. And if it's good, you've got something great. And if it's not good, you don't do it again. But you can have an idea for a gin product and you can have it on a market inside of 3 months. Whereas, you could come up with an idea for a whiskey product and maybe you can have that on the marketplace in like 5 or 6 years, maybe.
Now, you guys did some special releases. You did a 10th anniversary bourbon that was only available in Illinois, right?
Mm-hmm. It's getting ready to hit our DTC site at buyfewspirits.com. But we're sitting here in mid-December, and I've been saying it's about to hit the DTC site since August. So I have no idea when it's going to hit the DTC site. Sorry.
And you also have, we was talking about, you also have a single malt whiskey of your own.
Yeah, we love making single malt. it's something that a lot of the big boys really, I mean, can they do it? Yes, but they haven't in the past. And it's a cool opportunity to bring something new into the conversation of what whiskey is and what whiskey can be. Everybody thinks single malt equals Scotch, and that's just not true. Single malt is just a malt whiskey distilled at a single distillery, and we're a single distillery. We can make malt whiskey, so therefore it's single malt. And I think American single malt distillers making products that are competitively differentiated from Scotch is a great thing, because not everybody likes Scotch the exact same way. Not everybody likes bourbon. Not everybody likes rye. There is a whiskey for everybody. And if bourbon's not for you, try Feud single malt. It's okay.
The thing I noticed that you don't have on your website anyways is you only have the only finished bourbon that you're doing right now is your, I guess it would be your cold cut. Is that what it's called?
Yeah, it's not, I wouldn't call it a finished bourbon. We call it part of our cut series, because we use non-traditional liquids to cut with. So normally when you make whiskey, you use water to bring things down to barrel strength, or to bottle strength, sorry. With the cold cut, we use cold brew coffee. And it's that same bourbon that's in the the bottle of Bond. It's the same bourbon that's in our core bourbon. But instead of using water, we use cold brew coffee, because I like coffee.
Now, see, if you put that maple syrup in that, there's your breakfast drink.
That would be freaking delicious. The cold cut bourbon's not super sweet, but so you add in that, you add a little bit of syrup. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's how you start. Yeah. That's how you start your day.
That's a bourbon drinker's coffee.
Yes,
bourbon,
sir.
Maple syrup in a glass with your pancakes. You get the creaminess. Mm-hmm. You get everything you want in life right there as a bourbon drinker.
That's a beautiful thing right there.
So, Paul, what's I'm trying to get you out something that's coming out. I know you got something up your sleeve besides the rock and roll stuff that's fixing to come out. How many states are you in right now?
So we're currently available in all 50 states and about 36 countries. So pretty much wherever your listeners are in the world, you can find Feud Spirits. Some places it's a little bit easier to find than others, shall we say. But you can get it pretty much everywhere. And if your local doesn't have it, just feel free to ask for it, since it is available to your store, whether they carry it or not. And if they don't want to bring it in, you can always try buyfewspirits.com, and we'll ship it right to your front door.
Right to our front door.
Right to the front door. You don't get easier than that. And I think if you buy 3 bottles, shipping's a pain in the butt because it's super expensive. But if you buy 3 bottles, I think we pay for the shipping.
Well, that's even better if you're paying for the shipping. Is that worldwide or is that just for the U.S.?
Just for the U.S. And I think it's only 46 states. So they can't ship everywhere.
Sure.
Probably those control to the alcohol business. No, like Pennsylvania is not one of them, and then it might be Alaska and Hawaii just because it costs. I forget. I should probably learn that better, but I'm just a janitor, not the big sales guy.
Well, hey, at least you're honest. We talked about that a little bit. You're honest that you're just the regular guy and stuff, and I like that. I'd rather talk to somebody that's regular than somebody that's you pull up in front of the distillery and you do see a Rolls Royce out there, and that's who you're talking to. It's much nicer to talk to somebody that actually knows every part of that distillery, every inch of it, is in love with bourbon. When you talk to somebody that's not in love with bourbon, it really does show. And I can tell you love your whiskey, you love your bourbon. You're proud of it. It's a baby, right? It's like those teenage kids you got.
I love my kids more than I love my whiskey, but I do love my whiskey.
Yeah, you had to make sure you got that right. Where can our listeners find you guys on social media?
You can find us all over all your social medias at Feud Spirits. So at Feud Spirits on Instagram, at Feud Spirits on the TikToks, /Feud Spirits on the Facebooks, Twitter at Feud Spirits, although we don't do a whole lot on Twitter because, well, I'm old. So is what it is. We did just get a new social media person, and they're pushing out a lot more stuff out there, which has been kind of fun to watch. Because, like I said, I'm too old for that shit. But yeah, and fewspirits.com. We're on the web. So you can find out recipes and learn more about the brand at fewspirits.com. And then to purchase, you can link right over to buyfewspirits.com from there.
And if our listeners in the Chicago area, is your distillery open for tours?
Absolutely. You can book tours on the website as well, or also just email info@fewspirits.com, and we'll get you set up with our tour team, and they'll take great care of you as best we can. We run cocktail nights Thursday, Friday, Saturday nights. You can stop in, have a couple drinks, relax a little bit, take a load off. We're just right down an alley, and we're about 100 yards from the L as well as the Metro, right in the kind of the southeast corner of Evanston. It's about 25 minutes from the Loop. Easy to get to either via Uber or public transit.
See, that's what I'm talking about. And do you guys have food there also?
We don't have food, but we do have the ability to bring whatever you want in. There's a killer shop right across the street that's got great burgers and gyros. There's a great Mexican place right on the corner that's got amazing tacos. You can get delivery, pizza, whatever you want. Please bring in whatever food you want. We just don't have a kitchen.
So what's the pizza place there that they can order? Because everybody's got to have some deep dish Chicago style pizza, right?
Yeah, so you can get pizza delivered from Malnati's, which is my personal favorite. You can get your Giordano's delivered if that's your jam. There's a great new place in town called Cantuccio's, which is like just like an independent pizza guy who just makes killer pizza. There's a Detroit pizza place down the street called Firehouse Grill that they'll deliver you a pizza. Really nice, really good stuff there. It's a college town, so you can get whatever you want delivered. We got it. You got your Thais, your sushis, buffalo wings, because who doesn't like a good buffalo wing? You got it all. We just don't have a kitchen, man.
Well, hey, at least you're allowing people to bring food in. You're giving tours. Now, what about a single barrel program? Does Feud offer a single barrel program if somebody wants to buy a barrel of whiskey?
We sure do. We've got single barrel programs that run nationally as well as here in Illinois. We don't tend to stock them at the distillery itself. So if you just want a single barrel bottle, you got to go to a Binny's or any number of our retail partners. But you can also probably find single barrels wherever you happen to be in the world. Like, down in Kentucky, Liquor Barn currently has, I think, 4 single barrels from us.
So if the Bourbon Road wanted to buy an entire barrel as a single barrel, we can
come on up. Come on up. We can get our local distributor with samples. You can come right up and do the sampling right here.
Yeah, we love that kind of stuff. Well, Paul, I appreciate you sharing your whiskey with us. Feud is very delicious. The bottle and bond is everything it should be in a whiskey, with that peppery, cinnamon, creamy note to it. I loved it. I super appreciate you coming on, telling our listeners about your brand, about your history, about your background. We hope that everybody comes up to your town, eat some deep dish of pizza in your distillery, and leaves there with cases and cases of your bourbon and your gin.
Yeah, come on by, everybody. We don't bite. We just make whiskey. It's okay.
All right, listeners, you know where you can find us at. You can find us on TikTok. Heck, I posted a couple posts the last couple of days. Check those out. Give us a follow on there. We're on Instagram, Facebook. We're on Twitter, YouTube. Main place you can find us, though, is on Facebook. We have a private Facebook group in there called the Bourbon Roadies. 2,500 people strong and growing every day of like-minded people. 3 rules you got to follow. Are you 21? Do you love bourbon? Yes, everybody loves bourbon. Come on now. And do you agree to play nice? Because we don't tolerate any rudeness in there, meaning that if you drink from the very bottom of the shelf to the very top, we want you to be able to post those photos out there without anybody beating you up about it. But we just want to celebrate life, celebrate promotions, celebrate anniversaries. You name it. That's what we want to do. It's a celebration of whiskey, and that's what we're going to do in there. If you don't like doing that, there's plenty of other groups out there for you. You can also check out our website where we have our reviews of whiskeys. We also have our swag in there, our famous bourbon bullshitter t-shirt. You can buy that in there. We'd appreciate you buying our swag, our glasses, our hats, our cups. That stuff helps us get down the bourbon road. It helps fill our tanks with gas. Those gas prices are rising right now. So we'd appreciate your support, and you get something out of it. You get that bourbon bullshitter t-shirt that you can wear up to Feud Distillery and give them a good laugh because they're going to know that you don't take yourself too seriously. So check that out. We do 2 shows a week. We do our bourbon review on Mondays, usually of a craft distillery, 15 to 20 minutes. It'll get you to work. And on Wednesday, we have great guests on like Feud Whiskey and Paul. 30 minutes to work, 30 minutes back. Man, you're going to be de-stressed by the time you're done listening to us because you're going to be ready for a pour of this Feud whiskey. So check those shows out. But to make sure you don't miss those shows, we need you to scroll on up, hit that check sign, that plus sign, that subscribe sign on your app. That'll make sure that you get to listen to those 2 shows. And you know what I'm about to tell you. Scroll on down, hit that 5-star review because you know what's going to happen if you don't. I'm going to release the big bad booty daddy of bourbon. He's going to come over to your house with a bottle of this Feud whiskey. By the end of the night, you're going to give us a 5-star review. I guarantee. But seriously, those 5-star reviews help us to get great guests on like Paul and Feud whiskey. It allows us to do great reviews. It really does open up doors for us. So we appreciate that. Like I said, the best way to reach out to us is obviously on Instagram. You can send both of us an email. Jim is at Jim@the-Bourbon-Road. I'm Mike at the Bourbon Road. But the best way would be on Instagram, DMing us. He is JShannon63. I'm Big Bourbon Chief. And you know what we always like to say. We'll see you on down the Bourbon Road.